as a media guy, this is just speaking. He is an interesting. He has an ability in the media, but I think he comes across as arrogant.
No, that's true. A lot of people think that, but you know what? As much as people dislike his arrogance, real or just perceived, there are many who actually appreciate that arrogant tone about him as somebody who is a can-do person who's finally getting things done. So
maybe the president should be a little more arrogant.
No, when I see the governor in interviews, it's almost as though it's comic to him. Now, maybe I'm misreading it, that he kind of laughs, that it's all kind of...
But that's your view, and that's shared by a lot of people. I'm not suggesting your view is wrong.
And that's a little... I mean, he can be eccentric. Sometimes very bright people are eccentric. I just feel like he doesn't give me the feeling that he's really serious. It's like this point, ha-ha, and moving on and whatever, and I just am not...
I don't think it's a lack of seriousness. I've spent time with him. But at the end of the day, he does have a vision for what he wants. You may not agree with it. And he believes that his approach to things is correct. And he thinks that we just got to get moving and do it quickly and then move forward to the next thing. So when he decides something should be done, he'll say, okay, we should do this, we should do that. You talk to him and get it done, and now he's moving on to the next thing. And he leaves a lot of things in his wake when he does it that way.
There is a wake.
Yes.
I think that's the sense then that I'm getting, and that your choice of words is probably better. It's like...
The question I have is how much of this is really substantive? I mean, we had a president here at the University of Cochrane, and he was always on the move, and he would move office from
he
here.
Used to say full court press. Everything has got to be a full court press.
And he would, I mean, you always saw activity going on, but a lot of it was meaningless. Yeah. I mean, so what if you moved the admissions office for the third time in 4 years? That doesn't really improve the quality of admissions. It may actually hurt the quality of admissions. So I think you have to be careful between the perpetual motion machine, which looks impressive, and something that's more substantive and
are you suggesting
I'm a firm believer in relatively small changes will have a major impact.
You think
one bite at a time.
You think Governor Kasich is a perpetual motion machine and just putting a big wake into play? I mean, come on.
I don't think we know yet, but I do think there's a certain element of that, yeah.
The president is a skillful political man. He is very skillful politically. I think he's more skillful politically than Governor Romney, and I think he's more skillful politically than Governor Kasich because he understands that you have to give people what they need. Governor Kasich is saying it's my way or the highway. My style is my style, and that's it. Take it or leave it.
I think that's a fair assessment, one that many would disagree with, but a fair one.
A fair, disagreeable assessment.
I'm not sure I agree with you about Romney. I think he's had some. I think the Republican candidacy this year has had some bad luck.
Bad luck, yeah.
And he hasn't been able to get out.
Bad luck, like somebody's got a microphone paying attention to him when he's saying what he's really.
The same thing happened Barack Obama 4 years ago.
Yeah, it sure did.
And in this day and age, unfortunately, you can be a half a mile away and still have detailed pictures taken.
I think some of it's luck, but I think some of it's skill too. Look, I think that Romney made a colossal blunder on his comments following the embassy attacks. And then he, instead of backing off and really, either shying away from them or admitting that he had made a mistake, he actually doubled down and went further on his comments, and that was wrong. And I don't think anybody in America, certainly since we've all lived through terrorist acts, are going to apologize for the acts of terror. I mean, none of us are. But we all, or most of us, recognize that there are just certain things you shouldn't do because in good conscience as good people we shouldn't do, and that film was just ridiculous.
But I think there's another piece to that. I think that people have to be able to say, I made a mistake. I should not have said that.
We don't let politicians do that, do we?
Well, I think people should. And I think they should. I would rather have someone say mea culpa, and I understand the level of my error, and it won't happen again.
When was the last time that a politician said mea culpa and didn't get killed for it by the media?
I think
I just think people should be able to say, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. It was a slip of the tongue. Even if you say I meant it, but I didn't mean to say it, or it wasn't an appropriate place to say it. Well, but to just say
I meant it, but I didn't.
To try to clean it up and say, well, that's my campaign strategy. Well, good. I hope it shows up at the ballot box, because a lot of the the theys have been thinking that they were the we's. Now they know they're the theys.
Well, let me ask this question. Is Kasich a plus or a negative for Romney in the state?
I think they've kind of backed off from him.
I agree.
They backed off from him. He's the governor.
Backed off from him?
Oh, yeah, I think they're not counting on
Romney
him.
backed off from the governor?
Yeah,
Or
I
did the
think
governor
they're
back off
kind
from
of
Romney?
standing.
I think the governor's backed off from Romney.
Because he
You
wants to
know
get
what, you
reelected.
might, and I
Yes.
wonder,
Yes.
I'm looking at these
think
people, I'm
that's
saying,
the way
now
it's
what
played
does the
out?
governor
Yes.
want to run for next?
No, I think he wants to run for re-election, and I think,
I think
he
he
will
does.
stand for re-election, and we'll see what happens. I think he's got as good a chance as
So
any to be
he's
re-elected.
shrewd then, and whoever has created the
Portman's serving
distance.
as the Ohio whipping boy for Romney right now. He's dutifully acting the way he needs to be, and he's doing a good job at it. And we've had the whole conversation about Portman before, so we know what's there. But I really do think you're right. Kasich is running for re-election, and he's distancing himself from Romney. He'd rather see a Republican in the White House, but he's more about improving Ohio right now and continuing the job growth that's here. And what's happening in Washington, in his eyes, doesn't mean anything because he'd rather see Washington get out of the way and let him do his thing here in the state.
I was shocked, quite frankly, when a friend of mine who is a dedicated Republican, I mean to the tune of at least $50,000 election cycle, basically told me he thought it was over. And this goes back about 2 months ago. And that there was no way that Romney was going to beat Obama. And I was really surprised. I then asked him if he was still going to donate his money. He said, oh, yeah. But I was a little surprised. Is there a kind of a feeling within the Republican Party that Romney's serious in trouble and they're not going to be able to make it this year?
I think the point we were hearing about, you were bringing up the fracture in the party is
Right,
really the
right.
case because they can't bring everybody together. And I think you're going to see a lot of no-shows maybe on the fringes. Or people who can't bring themselves to vote for Obama, but aren't quite sure about Romney either.
I just wish that in the current situation in which we find ourselves in this country, that we could at least agree that we want to survive and we want to do more than survive, and that bipartisanship aside, we want to work together to get back on our feet. So I really think it's unfortunate, naive, I'm sure you're going to say, that we're so torn between party commitments that we don't recognize.
Well, you have a party commitment.
I do, but you know what? I compromise from time to time.
I don't notice that.
I mean, I would be willing to compromise to make a difference because the agenda.
Would be willing to compromise.
Well, I would give it some consideration, obviously. But you know, I know it's idealistic, but it would be so
It'll
great.
be a Christmas miracle. That's coming from the Jewish person in the room.
All right, Barney.
Okay.
Okay.
By the way, Happy New Year.
Have a good one.